In a world of intrigues and power, few names manage to transcend the pages of history. Saint Adelaide is one of them. From her birth into nobility to her transformation into an eternal symbol of faith, her life was a roller coaster of challenges, tragedies, and redemption. But what made this woman stand out among so many? Get ready to discover a story of courage, sacrifice, and a legacy that remains alive to this day. Nobility and destiny, the early steps of an extraordinary woman. Adelaide was born in the year 1931 into the powerful royal family of Burgundy. From an early age, she was surrounded by the intrigues that marked the politics of the time. Her father, King Rodolfo II of Burgundy, ruled a strategic but unstable region, and Adelaide grew up witnessing how power could unite but also destroy. Although she was a child, her curiosity and intelligence soon made her stand out at court. Adelaide's education was different from that of many young nobles. Her mother, a deeply religious woman, instilled in her from a young age the values of the Christian faith and the importance of charity. While other girls learned only to embroider and manage a household, Adelaide spent hours studying the scriptures and listening to stories of saints who had given their lives for something greater. Unbeknownst to her, these lessons would plant the seeds of her spiritual strength. At 16, her life took a drastic turn. Her marriage to Lotario II, King of Italy, was arranged to consolidate a political alliance between Burgundy and Italy. Although the wedding was celebrated with great pomp, for Adelaide, this was not the beginning of a fairy tale. As queen, she soon found herself immersed in a world of conspiracies where loyalty was as fragile as a silk thread. However, her strong character and faith helped her face the first storms of her adult life. As Queen of Italy, Adelaide proved to be more than just a decorative figure. Her intelligence and negotiation skills made her a key player in her husband's politics. But these qualities also earned her enemies. Although Lotario seemed to have control, political tensions began to intensify, leaving Adelaide in a vulnerable position. Rumors of betrayals and plots became constant, marking the days of the young queen. Despite her youth, Adelaide already demonstrated a resilient spirit. While other women of her time might have succumbed to environmental pressures, she found solace in her faith and the certainty that her life had a higher purpose. These early years not only forged her character, but also laid the foundations for the legend that was to come. Love and tragedy, an alliance that changed her life forever. Adelaide and Lotario II's marriage seemed on paper a perfect alliance. Two united kingdoms, a young couple at the helm, and the promise of stability in an era of chaos. But reality was much more complicated. Lotario, though an ambitious man, was surrounded by enemies and faced constant challenges to his authority. Adelaide, amid this storm, tried to be a pillar of support for her husband, but soon realized that medieval politics spared no one. During the years they shared, Adelaide learned firsthand the price of power. While trying to balance her duties as queen with her personal life, the Italian court was filled with conspiracies and mistrust. Rumors of betrayal and disloyalty were everyday bread, and Adelaide had to navigate these dangerous waters carefully. Her faith was her refuge, and she was often seen praying for guidance. The hardest blow came unexpectedly. Lotario died under mysterious circumstances, leaving Adelaide widowed before she turned 20. Her loss was devastating, but the danger did not end there. As a widowed queen, Adelaide became the center of a dispute for the throne. Berengar of Ivrea, an usurper with excessive ambitions, captured and imprisoned her, attempting to force her to marry his son to legitimize his rule. Instead of surrendering, Adelaide showed unwavering strength. Prisoner of power, the dark days of her imprisonment. Adelaide's imprisonment in the castle on the shores of Lake Garda was more than a physical prison. It was an attempt to break her spirit. Berengar of Ivrea, the man who had captured her, believed he could bend her, forcing her to accept a marriage with his son to legitimize his power. But what Berengar underestimated was Adelaide's inner strength. Although surrounded by high walls and vigilant guards, her faith and determination were more powerful than any chain. Days in prison were cold and dark. Adelaide had little to sustain herself. Food was rationed, her clothes were inadequate for the climate, and isolation seemed endless. But instead of allowing despair to consume her, Adelaide began to plan. She knew that relying on others was not enough. She had to keep her mind clear and be ready to seize any opportunity. She spent hours praying, not only asking for strength but also for wisdom to find a way out. It was a daily exercise in patience and faith. The first spark of hope came through a loyal priest who, risking his own life, managed to make contact with Adelaide. This man, whose identity was never fully revealed, brought her news from outside the castle. He assured her that there were allies working to help her and promised that they would find a way to get her out. But time was running out. Berengar was losing patience, and the pressure for Adelaide to accept his conditions was increasing every day. The escape plan was drawn with almost miraculous precision. The priest and a small group of loyal followers devised a method requiring both courage and cunning. For several nights, they studied the castle guards' routines. They identified a weak point in the surveillance, a section of the wall that, although high, was less protected due to the belief that no one could scale it without being seen. Everything would depend on the right moment and Adelaide's ability to remain silent and move quickly. The night of the escape. The night of the escape was a mix of terror and determination. Adelaide was guided through a secret passage in the castle that connected the dungeons to the outside. The priest had obtained the door keys thanks to a risky bribe to one of Berengar's less loyal guards. But even with this advantage, the danger was immense. Every step echoed through the stone corridors, and any noise could alert the guards. Adelaide, despite the fear she felt, remained calm. She knew that a single mistake could cost everyone involved their lives. When they reached the outer wall, the group faced the greatest challenge. Adelaide, not a woman accustomed to extreme physical efforts, had to climb with the help of improvised ropes. Her hands hurt, her muscles trembled, but her will was stronger than her body. As she climbed, she heard the sound of footsteps in the distance. The guards were near. In a moment of pure instinct, Adelaide clenched her teeth and continued, ignoring the pain and fear. Finally, she reached the top of the wall and, with the help of her allies, descended on the other side. The escape did not end there. The group had to run for hours through dangerous terrain, avoiding main roads and seeking refuge in forests and small villages. The rain began to fall, turning the ground into mud but also helping to cover their tracks. Adelaide was exhausted, with her clothes soaked and her body bruised. But she did not stop. She knew that every step took her closer to freedom and away from her prison. Eventually, after days of fleeing, Adelaide arrived at a safe place, the court of King Otto of Germany, who received her with respect and admiration for her bravery. Her arrival not only marked the end of her captivity, but also the beginning of a new stage in her life. She had demonstrated that even in the most desperate circumstances, courage and faith could open paths where none seemed to exist. Adelaide's escape. Adelaide's escape was not just an act of survival, but also a declaration of her indomitable spirit. From that moment on, she was not simply a pursued widowed queen. She was a figure of resistance, a woman who had defied the odds and triumphed. This feat became a testament to the inner strength that would define her life and legacy. The divine calling, the moment that transformed her life. Adelaide's arrival at King Otto of Germany's court marked a turning point in her story. Exhausted from the days of fleeing, but determined not to give up, she found in Otto not only a political ally, but also a man who shared her vision of just leadership and devotion to God. This encounter would be more than a mere alliance. It would become the catalyst for a spiritual calling that would change her life forever. Otto, impressed by Adelaide's bravery and strength, treated her with respect and admiration from the beginning. Both shared a greater purpose than politics, to bring stability to Europe in an era of chaos. It was amidst these meetings that a deeper connection began to emerge. Otto saw in Adelaide not only a strong woman, but also a companion who could walk by his side in his mission to build a kingdom based on faith and justice. Despite her personal tragedy, Adelaide felt that her suffering had not been in vain. During long conversations with Otto, she reflected on her life, her losses, and the challenges she had faced. Gradually, she began to realize that everything she had lived through had a greater purpose. In those nights of confessions and prayers, she felt that God was calling her to fulfill a mission that went beyond her own survival. The marriage between Otto and Adelaide. The marriage between Otto and Adelaide was not merely a political union. For her, it represented a new beginning, an opportunity to turn her pain into strength and her faith into action. Together they ruled with a shared purpose, to protect the most vulnerable and restore peace in a divided world. In this new role, Adelaide dedicated herself not only to being a wife and queen, but also to being a spiritual guide for those seeking hope in times of uncertainty. This period of her life was a spiritual rebirth. Adelaide began to engage in acts of charity, building churches and monasteries, and offering refuge to the poor and persecuted. She firmly believed that her place was not only at court, but among those who needed comfort and guidance. This divine calling drove her to become a figure who not only ruled but inspired, marking the beginning of an era of devotion and service that would define her legacy. The power of forgiveness, a lesson that marked generations. Adelaide's life was filled with betrayals, losses, and challenges, but what truly distinguished her was her ability to forgive. In an era where revenge was almost the norm, she chose a different path, that of forgiveness and reconciliation. This approach not only transformed those around her, but also made her a symbol of hope and virtue for future generations. The most impactful episode in her exercise of forgiveness occurred with Berengar, the man who had imprisoned her and attempted to bend her. After her escape and union with Otto, Adelaide had the opportunity to seek revenge against her former captor. Many at the German court expected her to do so, as a way to demonstrate power and establish justice. But Adelaide surprised everyone by choosing forgiveness. Instead of seeking retaliation, she intervened to have Berengar's life pardoned. This act not only showcased her greatness of spirit, but also solidified her reputation as a moral leader. Adelaide's forgiveness was not a gesture of weakness, but an act of bravery. In her heart, she understood that true justice does not always come from retribution, but from the ability to break the cycle of hatred. Her decision disarmed her enemies and sent a powerful message to her allies. Faith and humanity were above politics and power. The impact of this act extended beyond her time. People began to see Adelaide as a model of virtue and Christian devotion. Monks and chroniclers of the time recorded her acts of reconciliation as examples of true faith practice. Her life became a reminder that even in the darkest moments, forgiveness can open paths to peace and redemption. Adelaide continued to live by this principle for the rest of her life. No matter how many times she was betrayed or challenged, she always found the strength to forgive. For her, forgiveness was not just a personal choice, but a divine mandate. She believed that by freeing others from their mistakes, she herself found spiritual freedom. Her legacy as a woman who chose forgiveness over hatred continues to inspire to this day. A second chance, a reign guided by faith. After her union with Otto the Great, Adelaide had a second chance to transform not only her life, but also the destiny of Europe. As Empress of the Holy Roman Empire, her role was much more than that of a ceremonial figure. Alongside Otto, she embarked on a mission to bring stability, justice, and faith to a fractured world. This period of her life was the climax of her legacy as a leader guided by spiritual values. Adelaide, now in a consolidated position of power, used her influence to promote charitable works and strengthen the church. She firmly believed that power should be a means to serve others, not an end in itself. Under her direction, monasteries were built, and education was encouraged among the poorest communities. These institutions not only offered refuge to the needy, but also served as centers of learning and spirituality, leaving a lasting imprint on the region. As a couple, Otto and Adelaide worked tirelessly to unify the kingdoms under their mandate. However, it was not an easy path. Internal and external conflicts tested their leadership on multiple occasions. Adelaide, with her previous experience of suffering and resistance, became a key advisor to Otto. Her wisdom, forged in the darkest moments of her life, allowed her to offer peaceful solutions to disputes that seemed insurmountable. Faith was always the central pillar of their reign. Adelaide insisted that every decision they made should be guided by Christian principles. For her, ruling was not just a political task, but an act of service to God. This perspective led her to personally intervene in conflicts between nobles, offer direct help to peasants, and ensure that divine justice was present in the empire's laws. Her compassion and dedication inspired both her subjects and the religious leaders of the time. As her reign progressed, Adelaide became an almost mythical figure. Rumors of miracles began to circulate, and her connection with the people grew deeper. She was seen not only as an empress, but also as a spiritual mother to those seeking comfort and hope. Her reign, marked by her faith and desire to serve, left an indelible mark on European history and cemented her place as one of the most revered figures of her time. Between the cross and the crown, the struggle for justice and peace. The reign of Adelaide and Otto the Great was not without challenges. Amid victories and advancements, internal and external conflicts arose, testing not only the stability of their empire, but also Adelaide's faith and courage. As Empress, she had to navigate between the cross, a symbol of her faith and spirituality, and the crown, representing political demands and power intrigues. One of the most difficult moments of her life came after the death of Otto the Great, when their son, Otto II, ascended to the throne. Although Adelaide hoped that the legacy of justice and compassion she had built with her husband would continue, she soon faced a bitter reality. Tensions between mother and son began to grow. Influenced by ambitious and mistrustful advisors, Otto II came to see his mother as a political threat. This family conflict was a deep blow to Adelaide, who had dedicated her life to unity and peace. Adelaide was exiled from the imperial court for a time, forcing her to seek refuge in the Abbey of Cluny, a place known for its religious fervor and influence in church reform. This period of isolation, though painful, allowed Adelaide to deepen her faith and reflect on her life's mission. Instead of succumbing to resentment or bitterness, Adelaide chose forgiveness once more, demonstrating that her commitment to the cross was stronger than any political dispute. Eventually, the tensions between mother and son began to subside, and Adelaide was restored to her place at court. From that moment on, she worked tirelessly to support Otto II's reign, offering him not only political advice, but also her spiritual guidance. Although the wounds of their conflict did not completely heal, Adelaide understood that her role was to help maintain the empire's stability and ensure that Christian values remained at the heart of their government. In addition to internal conflicts, Adelaide faced external threats to the empire. From incursions by foreign forces to disputes with local nobles, each challenge became an opportunity for her to demonstrate her commitment to justice and peace. Her ability to mediate, her wisdom, and her unwavering faith made her stand out as an indispensable leader in times of crisis. The legacy of this period of her life is measured not only in political terms, but also spiritually. Adelaide, by facing the darkest moments of her life with grace and courage, became a living symbol of the strength that can be found by embracing both the cross and the crown. Her example transcended her time, inspiring leaders and believers alike to seek justice and peace even in the most difficult moments. Miracles in her lifetime, events that brought her closer to heaven. Adelaide's life was not only marked by her leadership and faith, but also by the miracles that began to surround her even before her death. These events, inexplicable to many of her time, contributed to cementing her reputation as a holy figure. Although Adelaide always rejected any form of personal praise, the testimonies of those who witnessed these events reinforced the idea that she was an instrument of God on earth. One of the first miraculous accounts occurred during a severe famine in the territories under her rule. Grain reserves were depleted, and hunger struck both peasants and nobles alike. According to chroniclers, Adelaide ordered the royal reserves to be distributed among the people, even when her advisors insisted that there would not be enough for everyone. Miraculously, the provisions seemed to multiply, sufficient to feed hundreds of people for weeks. This act not only alleviated her people's suffering, but also strengthened her spiritual bond with them. Another well-known episode took place in a monastery that Adelaide had founded. During a visit, a paralyzed woman was brought to her seeking comfort. Adelaide, deeply moved, knelt beside the woman and prayed fervently. According to the account, the woman regained the ability to walk at that very moment. Although Adelaide never claimed the miracle as her own, asserting that it was all the work of God, this event quickly spread, increasing her fame as a divine intercessor. Adelaide was also known for her ability to mediate seemingly impossible conflicts. On one occasion, two noble families at odds for years came to her seeking justice. The Empress not only managed to reconcile the parties, but, according to witnesses, did so in a way that left everyone feeling touched by divine peace. These moments were interpreted as miracles of reconciliation, a skill that few leaders of her time could claim. As the years passed, stories about Adelaide multiplied. Some said that her mere presence brought calm and hope to the sick and afflicted. Others recounted how her prayers seemed to have the power to change the course of events. Although these events could not always be verified, it is certain that they helped build the image of a woman whose life was guided by a higher force. These miracles in her lifetime not only strengthened her legacy, but also began to pave the way for her veneration after her death. For those who knew her, there was no doubt that Adelaide was destined to be remembered as a saint, a woman whose faith had not only transformed her life, but also that of those who had the privilege of crossing her path. The humility of a leader, a queen different from all others. In a world where nobility typically ruled from golden thrones surrounded by luxury, Adelaide stood out for her genuine humility. Despite being Empress of the Holy Roman Empire, she never allowed power to distance her from the values that had guided her life since her youth. Her leadership was characterized by a deep commitment to serving others, which distinguished her as a queen different from all others. Adelaide had a habit of walking among her people, listening to their concerns and offering direct help. Instead of merely giving orders from court, she personally oversaw charitable works, the distribution of food, and support for the poor. Historical records describe her visiting villages affected by poverty and disease, bringing comfort and assistance. For her, leadership was not a position of privilege, but a sacred responsibility. One of the most emblematic gestures of her humility was her relationship with monasteries and convents. Although she had founded many of these institutions, Adelaide did not limit herself to financing them. She spent long periods within them, living almost like a nun. She participated in prayers, helped with daily tasks, and dedicated time to listen to the nuns and peasants who came seeking guidance. Her closeness to these communities not only strengthened the spiritual life of her domains, but also showed her people that even the most powerful woman in the empire was a servant of God. At court, Adelaide was known for her equal treatment of everyone, from nobles to servants. She never allowed the opulence of the palace to separate her from others. It was often said that her table was open to all, and that anyone, regardless of their rank, could approach her for advice or justice. This attitude won her the love of the people and the respect of many religious and political leaders. However, her humility was not a political strategy, but an extension of her faith. Adelaide firmly believed that power only made sense if it was used to do good. In her personal letters and prayers, which have survived the passage of time, she expressed her fear of falling into the temptation of pride and prayed to God to keep her humble. For her, the crown was not a symbol of superiority, but an opportunity to serve. Adelaide's humility not only marked her reign, but also left a lasting example. She inspired her contemporaries and future generations to reconsider the true meaning of leadership. Throughout her life, she showed that true power does not reside in wealth or status, but in the ability to live with humility and dedication to serving others. Despite her advanced age, Adelaide continued to play an active role in the empire's politics. She became an essential mediator in disputes between nobles, using her wisdom and experience to prevent major conflicts. Her ability to find peaceful solutions, even in extremely tense situations, earned her the respect of both friends and enemies alike. In every crisis, Adelaide demonstrated that her faith and determination were stronger than any adversity. The final years of her life were marked by a delicate balance between earthly power and preparation for eternal life. Adelaide never set aside her responsibilities as a leader, but also began to devote more time to reflecting on her legacy and her relationship with God. She knew that her time on earth was coming to an end, but she was determined to leave a more just and united empire. Adelaide's ability to bear the weight of the crown without losing her humanity or faith was a testament to her inner strength. Despite the trials she faced, she never stopped fighting for justice and peace, leaving a legacy that would continue to inspire long after her death. The eternal light, the legacy that became legend. In the twilight of her life, Adelaide had built an unmatched legacy of faith, justice, and humility. Although she had endured challenges that would have broken many, she never lost her strength or purpose. Her dedication to serving God and her people left an indelible mark on history. As the moment of her departure approached, her earthly life began to intertwine with eternity. Adelaide spent her final years at the Abbey of Seltz, a place she had founded herself as a spiritual refuge. There, surrounded by nuns and peasants who revered her as a mother and guide, she dedicated her days to prayer and charitable work. The Empress, now elderly, was a venerable figure, both for her wisdom and her compassion. Although physically more fragile, her spirit remained unbroken. According to records, her final moments were filled with serenity and surrender. Surrounded by those who loved her, Adelaide offered her final prayers with a peace that moved those present. Her death on December 16, 1999, marked the end of an extraordinary life and the beginning of her spiritual immortality. For many, her passing was not a farewell, but a transition to a state closer to God. Shortly after her death, accounts of miracles attributed to her intercession began to emerge. From inexplicable healings to impossible reconciliations, these stories strengthened the belief that Adelaide had achieved a special connection with the divine. Peasants and nobles who visited her tomb seeking help returned with testimonies of comfort and hope. Her name began to be venerated throughout Europe, and her figure acquired an almost mythical aura. Adelaide's legacy not only lived in the hearts of those who knew her, but also left a lasting impact on the structure of the church and medieval society. The churches and monasteries she founded continued to serve as centers of faith and learning, while her example of humility and leadership inspired generations of religious and political leaders. For the Catholic Church, Adelaide represented the ideal of a Christian ruler, someone who had used her earthly power to draw closer to heaven. Over time, Adelaide was officially recognized as a saint, but her impact went far beyond her canonization. Her life became a testament to how faith, forgiveness, and dedication can transcend any adversity. To this day, her name is remembered as a beacon of hope, an eternal light that continues to illuminate the path for those seeking inspiration in difficult times. A prayer to remember her legacy, the prayer of Saint Adelaide. To conclude, a prayer dedicated to Saint Adelaide connects us with her example of faith and devotion. This prayer summarizes the values that guided her life and invites us to seek her intercession in our own struggles. O Saint Adelaide, beacon of faith and example of humility, intercede for us before the throne of God. Teach us to forgive as you did, to serve with courage, and to love without measure. May your life inspire our days, and may your example guide us in times of uncertainty. Pray for us, Saint Adelaide, so that we may find the peace and strength that bring us closer to the divine will. Amen.